it seems to me that there's a big disconnect, not just with governments, but basically between elites and very large sections of the population. As Chris Rose calls them, the prospectors and pioneers have separated, or as David Goodhart puts it, the somewheres and the anywheres. The somewheres are characterized by a profound connection to a sense of place. As Chris Rhodes put it, a lack of agency, but a deep connection to a people and a particular place. Whilst the anywheres are characterized by a very powerful sense of agency and are reveling and having the time of their lives as globalization and technology converge, effectively turning the whole world into a gigantic shopping mall for them. Is creating global career prospects for those lucky enough to be the chosen few in a sort of high performance work practices that we're increasingly seeing in global talent management. The leaders of the political and the economic elite effectively have less and less in common with what remains as the majority of their own populations. Frustration with being nothing more than the victims of globalization and technology, i.e. for economic settlers, the outsourcing of jobs, the reduced prospects for having a meaningful role in society as you're put on 0 hours contracts and these kinds of things, and the loss of shops to e-commerce, the loss of community to a world that's gone online, is driving social settlers, those we might characterize as sort of Daily Mail readers in a sort of caricaturical sense, are driving both of them to come together. One, historically, we'd think of as natural conservatives. Another we'd think of as natural Labour supporters, are combining forces in the UK, and not only the UK, to reject globalisation and technology. And they're doing that through Brexit, they're doing that through Marine Le Pen in France, and they're doing that through AfD and others and Donald Trump in America. And of course, in France, this came to head with a whole series of protests. And it's evolved in different ways in different countries according to their specific circumstances.
I would add something to complement that, perhaps. In addition to the material kind of dimensions of the disconnect, I would add also the element of narrative. So I think in the case of France, we can see that the government was trying to propose a narrative on why these taxes were coming through, and that was connected to the need to act on climate change, and that the working class was not buying it and was saying, no, actually, you don't need to tackle this crisis by raising, the taxes on fuels or other ways. And there was just that disconnect with the elite. They thought that that narrative was something that was going to work out, and then it didn't work out, and people did not accept it. And when we think of narratives, I mean, it's a story you tell, but it's, how you position actors in the field. It's like, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys? What are the channels that we have to follow to achieve change? And I think that disconnect is happening in other places as well, but France is quite a good example of it.
I think also the Gilets jaunes protests really encapsulate the growing rise in populism that we're seeing. It's been unprecedented in recent years, and not since the late 1930s have we seen this kind of populist surge, and there's a very strong reason for it in that over the last 4 or 5 years there's been a really strategic utilisation of populism as almost a sales pitch in order to drive revolutionaries and outsiders from the fringe of the political mainstream to the centre, utilising these very, very technologically advanced means of packaging up what we could call populist will of the people, speaking for the people, charismatic rhetoric and dialogue, and positioning that as a way of propelling these people into the mainstream. It's a very calculated utilisation and recommodification of reality, and we have to be very careful, I think, in asking ourselves what is reality, and who is actually attaching themselves to charismatic movements like the Gilets jaunes that started off in a positive way, and reutilising those for a more right-wing propagandist kind of goal.